the anecdotal fallacy. Now, that's a juicy one, isn't it? It's the kind of cognitive bias that turns the whole world into a circus. You see, people love their little stories, their personal experiences. They cling to them like they're holding on to a life raft in the middle of the ocean. But here's the punchline. They're all drowning in delusion, and they don't even know it. You ever notice how everyone's got a story? Oh, my uncle smoked a pack a day and lived to be 90. Or, I knew a guy who ate nothing but bacon and eggs and he never had a heart problem. It's laughable, really. They take these little one-off stories, these outliers, and they use them to paint over the entire reality. They shove the cold, hard statistics into a closet because, well, numbers don't have the same ring as a feel-good, cherry-picked tale, do they? No. Stories are what they want. They're easier to digest like candy for the brain, even if they rot the teeth of truth. Let me tell you something about people. They're hopelessly addicted to confirmation bias, and the anecdotal fallacy is their favorite drug. It's everywhere. Oh, you see it on the news, at dinner tables, in the office. People hear one story that fits what they already want to believe, and boom. That's their reality now. Forget facts, forget logic. Who needs them when you've got Aunt Sally's miracle cure or Bob's rags to riches story? Let's take the everyday person, for example. You've got this guy, works in an office, hears from a friend about some wonder diet. Let's call it the raw meat cleanse, or whatever trendy nonsense is floating around. His friend dropped 10 pounds in a week, so of course that's all he needs to hear. He doesn't need medical studies, doesn't need expert advice. No, because if it worked for his buddy, it must be true, right? After all, if it happened to someone he knows, it's got to be real. He'll start wolfing down raw steak like a wild animal, thinking he's found the key to eternal health, while the rest of the world looks on in silent disbelief. But that's the beauty of it. People don't want to believe they're wrong. They use these stories like shields, protecting them from the messy, inconvenient truth. They'll say, "But my cousin did X and Y happened, so clearly that's how the world works." And suddenly, their cousin's experience trumps years of research, data, and expertise. Why? Because people don't like complexity. They want their reality wrapped up in a neat little bow, delivered by someone they can relate to, someone who fits their narrative. Forget that their cousin was the exception. Forget that the rest of the data shows the opposite. They've latched onto that story and they'll ride it all the way to their own demise. Now here's where it gets really fun. Imagine someone who believes vaccines are dangerous. Yeah, we've all heard it. They'll pull out that one story about a friend of a friend who had some reaction. Never mind the millions of people who get vaccinated every year without a hitch. But no, that one story. That's their entire case. Forget medical research. Forget overwhelming evidence that shows vaccines save lives. Why listen to any of that when you've got a story? And the more emotional, the better. You see, people aren't swayed by statistics. They're swayed by fear. They don't care about the 99.999% who are just fine. They only care about the outlier, the 1 in a million, because that's where the drama is. They do the same thing with crime, you know? Watch the news and you'll hear about a murder in some distant city, and suddenly everyone's convinced the world's going to hell. It doesn't matter that crime rates might actually be dropping overall, or that they're safer now than they've ever been. Nope, that one headline is all it takes. Now they won't walk down the street at night. They'll install security cameras, double lock their doors, live in fear, because they heard a story. That's all it takes. A single anecdote and they're off the rails. The brain doesn't care about reality. It just wants a good, solid narrative. It wants something vivid, something it can cling to. Oh, but here's where it gets really dark. You want to know where this bias leads? Wars, revolutions, all built on stories. Take any political movement, and you'll find it littered with anecdotes, personal tales that stir the masses, ignite anger, and push people to the brink. People don't start wars because of facts. They start wars because of stories. They hear about some injustice, some act of cruelty. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but it doesn't matter. It only takes one tale to spark a fire. People don't need a mountain of evidence to burn down their world. They just need a single match. And what's most hilarious is how predictable it all is. You can see it coming from a mile away, but they can't. They never see it. They fall for it every time because they want to. They need their stories to feel alive, to feel connected to something bigger than themselves. Data, facts, that's for the nerds, the killjoys. But a story? Now that is something they can believe in. It makes them feel like they've got a handle on things, even when they're sinking deeper into ignorance. They'll base their entire worldview on a handful of personal experiences, as if that's the whole picture. But it never is. It's just the tip of the iceberg, and the iceberg's always much bigger, much colder, and much more terrifying than they'd like to admit. So, here's the kicker. People are prisoners to their own anecdotes, locked in little cages of personal truth, blind to the world outside. They'll cling to those stories, tell them over and over again until they've woven a web so tight they can't escape. And the world? Oh, the world will laugh as they trip over their own narratives, as they fall victim to their own biases again and again. But hey, that's the joke, isn't it? They think they're being rational. They think they're being smart. But really, they're just running in circles, telling themselves the same tired stories and hoping that this time it'll be enough to make sense of the chaos. Spoiler alert, it never is.